exhausted of my father's generational sexism. I've had years to watch the subtle but constant ways my father and the men in my family operate within the confines of their generational attitudes, ways they claim to oppose sexism on principle, yet unwittingly uphold it at every turn. Even now, if you ask them point blank, they'd tell you they believe in equality, that men and women deserve the same opportunities, the same respect, the same burdens and freedoms, and yet, in the actual day-to-day of their lives, they cling to deeply ingrained old-school habits, either unaware of the contradictions or too set in their ways to change. I wouldn't say my father is a bad man. Far from it. He doesn't go on tirades, he's not outwardly hateful, and I've always known he cares for our family in his own way. But caring in a quiet, distant sense isn't the same as being emotionally present, or willing to question the cultural defaults he was raised with. Growing up, it was the women. My mother, my sisters, myself, who did the bulk of the housework, laundry, cooking, all that. It was never an official decree. No one explicitly said, women do X, men do Y. But the arrangement became obvious. My father and brothers might say, that's just how things go, or, I'm not preventing you from doing anything else. But if I had debt, I'd say they'd bristle at the thought of calling themselves feminists. They like to think they believe in gender equality, but they've never bothered to challenge the daily behaviors that assume women will pick up the domestic slack. Even now, when my father visits, he won't spontaneously offer to help set the table, or prepare the meal or wash the dishes, unless everyone else is already bustling around, and it becomes glaring that he's idle. Then he might shuffle forward to see if there's a small task left for him, but only if it's unmistakably expected. Meanwhile, at his own home, my mother still hands him a plate of dinner each evening where he sits, a detail that used to go unnoticed, but now looms large for me. That unspoken arrangement mirrors what I saw throughout my childhood. Men get served, women do the serving, and if anyone comments on it, he shrugs and says, that's just the way we do it. As much as that dynamic wears on me, I've learned to pick my battles over time. I understand that people of my father's generation and background can be hard to crack open. They're not always malicious, but they're rooted in a mindset that's comfortable. The real frustration is that I can't even discuss the frustration with him. He's not the kind who opens up to introspection or conversation about feelings. We tiptoe around these topics, never mentioning them overtly. And while I can see the tension in my mother's eyes, or sense my own resentment simmering, we just don't talk about it. It's a silent agreement that we'll go on as if nothing is amiss. That is, until a day like today, when his old-school attitudes become impossible to ignore or shrug off. He showed up at my house for a visit. Fine, no big deal. We had planned a lovely family dinner, something I was actually excited about. I'd come home with bags of fresh groceries, imagining we'd all cook together. Or at least me, my mother, and my partner would do so while my father made idle conversation from a nearby chair. But I was ready to accept that role, because we've reached a sort of equilibrium in these visits. Then he arrived with an uninvited friend in tow, someone I actively dislike. And not just because he's a bit gruff or socially awkward, he is outright sexist, the kind of man who makes no effort to hide his outdated opinions about a woman's place. He's the sort of person who thinks, it's just a joke, or I'm just teasing when he makes demeaning comments. Naturally, my father doesn't challenge him, because as he once explained, it's a generational thing. He doesn't mean any harm. That's the excuse, the pass that's always given to these older men, who never updated their worldview to match the modern era. Oh, they're just from a different generation. So we tolerate, we grin, we let it slide. But I'm too exhausted for that anymore. As soon as the two of them stepped inside, the friend caught sight of the groceries. Instead of saying, oh, you're cooking something special, that's great, or need any help, or even, thanks for inviting me in, he made himself at home in the comfiest chair and asked, what's for supper, ladies? In that tone, a smug assumption that we're about to don our aprons and serve up a nice hot meal for him. Never mind that he didn't ask if I wanted company or check if we had enough food. Never mind that I was planning something personal and relaxing with my mother and partner. Instantly, I felt the rage flood my veins. That single phrase, what's for supper, ladies, crystallized everything about generational sexism that makes my stomach churn. The entitlement, the presumption of female labor, the complete lack of self-awareness that maybe we don't exist to feed him. I caught myself standing there, half frozen, groceries in my arms, while he kicked off his shoes like he owned the place. My father didn't correct him, didn't say a word. My mother and my partner exchanged glances with me, all of us silently communicating. We are not doing this today. I let out a breath. This was the moment I realized I was done. I was not about to put on a pleasant face and say, "Oh sure, just let me slip these groceries into the oven and whip something up for you." I'm not going to contort myself for the sake of politeness, not after a lifetime of these small indignities. So I made a decision, quietly. In that instant, there would be no dinner prepared for them. Not only that, I would consciously opt out of hosting them in any capacity. No entertaining, no small talk, nothing. We, the ladies, as he so rudely put it, were going to do something else entirely. Treat ourselves. If I'm going to put my culinary skills and the food I purchase to good use, it'll be on my own terms, with people who respect me. I pulled my mother and partner aside and told them, "We're going out. Let's leave them to forage for themselves." My mother had this stunned, half-amused look, probably thinking, "Are you serious?" But I nodded. Absolutely serious. She broke into a grin, because she's had to deal with these attitudes for so long, never quite standing up to them. My partner just laughed and said, "Let's do it." Meanwhile, my father and his friend were preoccupied, chatting about who knows what, sports, weather, or politics. I could hear the friend joking in that gruff voice. "Yeah, so what's on the menu tonight?" With a cackle, my father, presumably, saw no issue. As far as they were concerned, dinner would appear eventually. That's the assumption they've lived with for decades. When we re-entered the living room, I calmly announced, "Hey, Mom, partner, ready to go." And they both grabbed their coats. The men looked puzzled. The friend asked, "Where are you ladies going?" "We just got here." I responded with a polite smile. "We have dinner plans elsewhere." Then my father, clearly baffled, said, "But I thought we'd have a nice family meal." And I simply shrugged. I changed my mind, I told him. I decided I'd rather not cook tonight. Help yourself to whatever's in the cabinets. I might have added a sweet enjoy, but I really don't recall. I was too focused on not letting my anger spill out. My mother gave them a small wave, and off we went. I can't describe how good it felt to step outside into the cold air, free of that stifling sense of obligation. We hopped into the car and drove to a cozy restaurant in town. It wasn't anything fancy, just a place where we knew we could get warm, comforting meals without the stress of hosting unwelcome guests. The entire ride there we ran it a bit, sharing how tired we were of those archaic expectations. My mother confessed that she'd never felt able to defy my father's unspoken rules, but seeing me do it, blatantly refusing to serve dinner, made her realize she wasn't obligated either. We clinked our glasses of wine at the restaurant, celebrating a small victory of self-respect. I can't help imagining what happened back at the house after we left. Perhaps they rummaged through the cupboards, found some crackers, maybe a jar of peanut butter, or a can of tuna. Maybe they realized the fridge wasn't stocked in a way that made sense for them. Possibly they ordered takeout, or maybe they left in a huff, complaining about how disrespectful I'd been. Let them moan, I say. After a lifetime of these micro, and sometimes macro aggressions, the bare minimum they can do is figure out their own meals. Bon appetit indeed. By the time we came home, the men had left. I discovered a crumpled plastic wrap in the trash. Someone must have eaten some cheese or something. The living room was in mild disarray. The friends' muddy footprints, the couch cushions askew. But it didn't bother me. I felt a rush of empowerment, thinking, finally, I didn't just put up with it. My mother was beaming too. She said something along the lines of, "I wish I'd done that years ago." And I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Sadness for all the dinners she prepared, out of a sense of duty or fear of confrontation. Sadness for how rarely the men in her life showed genuine gratitude. Sadness that she's only now realizing she could say, "No." My father hasn't confronted me about it directly. Knowing him, he might stew quietly or express mild confusion at my outburst. He may think it's just me having a moment, but I think the message is clear. I will not keep playing the role of cook-host maid just because they assume it's my lot in life. The friend, well, I don't care much about what he thinks. He's not someone I respect. If he can't understand why "what's for supper, ladies" is offensive, that's his problem. Reflecting on it, this event was more than just skipping dinner. It was a small but potent stand against ingrained gender roles, against years of normalizing that Mom and the girls will take care of domestic tasks while the men lounge. Maybe it's petty. Maybe it's overdue? but it felt right. I realized my exhaustion wasn't just physical, like from cooking or cleaning, but emotional exhaustion from always having to accommodate these archaic attitudes. Sometimes the simplest action, like refusing to feed someone who demands it, can be deeply liberating. Of course, the deeper issues won't vanish overnight. My father might remain the same emotionally distant figure, who only helps if everyone else is already doing it. His friend might remain sexist, doubling down on his generational excuse. But at least in my own space, I've set a boundary. You do not get to assume my labor. You do not get to waltz in and treat me like your personal chef. This was one meal, one example, but it's a start. For me, it's a promise that I won't silently comply with sexist nonsense in my own home anymore. What's next? Possibly I'll talk to my father about it at some point, though I'm not holding my breath. Our communication doesn't go deep, but if the situation arises again, I'll be ready with a direct statement. If you want a meal, you ask politely, and you respect that I might say no. That's how adulthood works. And if he, or his friend, tries to argue, I'll remind them that I'm not living in a 1950s fantasy. The planet has rotated many times since then, and I'm not about to revolve around their old assumptions. On some level, I hope this can inspire others in similar predicaments. People who've silently tolerated small sexist jabs or routines that funnel them into domestic servitude. A single moment of refusal can shift the dynamic, even if only slightly, and remind you that you have agency. Sure, it might cause tension or awkwardness, but the emotional relief from breaking that cycle might be worth it. I'm not advocating for starting a fight over every little thing, but when it's something that pushes your last nerve, sometimes you need to act. At the end of the day, it was just one evening, one dinner I didn't make, but symbolically, it was more. It was me saying, nope, not anymore, to a lifetime of unspoken assumptions. If the men are hungry, let them figure it out. We women will be out enjoying ourselves dining out, maybe sipping a glass of wine or a cocktail, laughing about the stereotypes we refuse to uphold. And if my father and his friend want to gripe about the new generation, so be it. I'd rather be part of that new generation than keep living in their old illusions. Let them scavenge the crackers and spray cheese while we relish something tastier and freer. So yes, bon freaking appetit to them. And good riddance to the old ways. I'm done catering to their comfort at the expense of my own. From now on, I choose my boundaries. I choose to sidestep the automatic assumption that I, as a woman, must serve because truly I'm exhausted of it. And this final straw snapped with an uninvited friend's casual, "What's for supper, ladies?" That was all it took for me to say, enough. And it felt damn good.